Hi viewers, my name's Cara. I'm your host for Tuesdays on the Pagan Perspective, and this week we are talking about more restricted practice, energy flow, and animals in circle. Before I get started, I would just like to say that this is week 51 of our second year on the Pagan Perspective, which means in a couple of weeks it's going to be the collab's 2-year anniversary. The Pagan Perspective is almost 2 years old, so that's really exciting, and I just wanted to say welcome to all of the new viewers who may have joined us recently, to those of you who have been around for a while, thanks for sticking with us, and to those of you who may have been here from the very beginning, August 2009, thank you so much for your continued support. Now let's move on to the questions, the first of which is from Michael, whose username is 791662, and this question is actually from a couple of months ago, but it's about starting college and going to school, so I figured it should probably come around the beginning of August before it no longer applies. So Michael writes, in a few months I'll be going off to college and moving to the dorms where things like candles, incense, and blades are prohibited for safety reasons. Any suggestions on some safer alternatives? Can I do without any of them entirely? Well, I happen to be about to be a senior in college this year, so I have a couple of suggestions. First, candles. A lot of the time people suggest something like this. The battery-operated candles that are still made of wax, still smell if you get the scented ones, this is vanilla, and still have the kind of flickering, dim lighting, ambiance sort of quality that some people like to use candles for. If that's what you want to use your candles for, this is a good alternative. I, however, use candles for a couple of things. For color, which I'll get to alternatives for that in a second, or, normally when I use a candle, it's because I want to use the flame to burn something, and there's not really an alternative for that because the fire is what they don't want you to have at college or university. I'm really into petition magic, and I like to burn the things that I write, so if I really have to do something like that, I will take my piece of paper out somewhere else on campus, outside of the dorms, and I use this bad boy right here. So pretty much the only alternative to fire is smaller fire that you're allowed to have, because obviously there are probably smokers on campus. I personally don't smoke. I only use this for lighting things on fire. I played a pyromaniac once in a play, but I'm not one, I promise. So there's that. Incense, same thing. It's fire, so you can't really replace that. But there are alternatives for the other uses of incense, such as representing air and for the smell. For the scent factor, I use this. This is a reed oil diffuser. You can get oil reed diffusers at various places, dollar stores, Walmart, things like that, and they're relatively cheap. And we have just collected various reeds from other ones that we got, and I actually cut some in half to make them fit mine and to have more of them. And my mom makes oils for this, but I am actually currently using a very cheap variety from a dollar store. You can see I've used a lot of it. So there's your alternative if you use incense to make your room smell good. As for the elements, this is a project that I started a little while ago. I have here some soil and moss to represent earth, some rainwater from my grandmother's bird bath when I went to visit her for water. This one is obviously full of air, not empty, but full of air. And I'm kind of working on the fire element one. I wanted to go with something like a lava rock, which I actually did get one, but it's too big and I'm too attached to it to break it. And this also needs broken down again too. It's just a red piece of glass that I got at the mine at the medieval fair, and I think that fits because glass is melted. So on my altar for elemental representations, instead of using incense for air and a candle for south, I would have these guys. Also, with the elemental representations come colors, which is the other thing I said I use candles for, and for that, you have things like crystals. This is a sunstone that I just got recently, and that to me would represent fire. These are blue lace agates, which would represent air. This is a seashell that they're sitting in, which I could fill with water, or you could use just any bowl of water, obviously. Any other blue stone that has something to do with water for me, or like I have a pearl, that could be water. Obviously a green stone, or brown, or hematite, or something like that could be earth, as well as a bowl of soil or a plant. I also have this little dragon up here who could represent fire to me as well. Oh, and there's a big stuffed fish. I guess I could use him for water if I had to. You know, you be creative. As for alternatives to blades, there aren't really a lot that are direct alternatives, except I read actually today in Scott Cunningham's Wicca Guide for the Solitary Practitioner, he talks about making a stone altar. Completely every tool you need is some form of stone, and he talked about using a sharpened stone or an arrowhead as the blade. Some schools also still allow you to carry a pocket knife up to a certain size, so I guess you could do that. You could purchase a separate pocket knife to use just as your ritual blade if you wanted to do that. And this kind of takes me into the next part of your question, can you do without any of them entirely? Which my answer is yes, because I don't use any of these things at school. And I don't use a blade in my practice at all, actually. I'm not a fan of sharp objects, and pretty much anything that I would need a blade for, I either use a wand, so I guess that could be another alternative for you, depending on what you use the blade for. Or if I really wanted to use an athame, I have these that I got a couple of years ago, which are just letter openers that look like tiny swords. So I actually use this one to open my mail, and this larger one hasn't been used. So if I were to use a blade in my practice at any point, I would probably dedicate this larger letter opener sword. It's called the Defender. It says so right there. So I thought they were really cute, and I actually got them with the intention of using it as my athame, but I just haven't used an athame in my practice yet, and I don't feel the need to yet. So those are a couple of my suggestions for replacing specifically candles, incense, and blades, depending on what you use them for normally. The next question comes from ZZombieDuckK, so Zombie Duck, I guess, who says, my aunt recently went to a naturopathic healer and was told that her tongue piercing was interfering with the energy flow to her head. She doesn't wear her tongue ring anymore. I really like piercings and tattoos and plan to get some when I'm older. My question is, what is your opinion on tattoos and piercings? Do they affect energy flow? Do the metals or dye affect your energy? Does the placement or meaning of the modification affect or change your energy? Until I read your message, which also came a couple of months ago, I apologize for the wait, but we have so many topics. When I first read your message, that was actually the first I had ever heard of something like this, so I had to think about it, and I can't think of a reason why a tongue ring specifically would affect the energy flow to your head. If anything, I would say it affects communication, and not necessarily because of the energy, but because your tongue might swell. But I've never heard anything about piercings affecting energy flow, especially since a lot of the people I know who work with energy and do Reiki healing and things like that have piercings, especially in their ears. And I can't think of a reason why a tongue piercing or a navel piercing or anything like that would do anything, because it's not cutting off any kind of circuit. I can see your point about does the metal itself affect your energy, and I don't know enough about metals to really speak to that. Tattoos, however, I have heard of only specifically tattoos that go all the way around a limb or a body part. I don't have any tattoos, but I've gone with my friends when they get piercings and tattoos. Most tattoo artists that I've come across actually will not do a tattoo all the way around your arm or all the way around your leg or something like that because of the energy flow. They say that if you're going to get an armband tattoo, it would actually like go from here and around back to here, but they would leave a space purposely because it would be cutting off the flow of energy, so that space would allow your energy to still go through. As far as I know, that has nothing to do with the dye itself physically affecting you. It's always seemed like just kind of a superstition to me, but I have heard of that. I've never heard of anything like that with piercings. So I don't know. I don't have a lot of piercings, and actually you guys have noticed probably that I'm only wearing one earring right now because this ear closed up again, and I'm gonna have to re-pierce it again for like the 6th time of my life. The third and final question comes from Gourmet Shand, or Gourmet Shand, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that, and this is also a very, very old topic. This was from months ago. So this question is, my 2 cat kids are always by my side when I'm at home. I'm still learning, and I'm curious as to if they can be in the same room with me when doing rituals, spells, or meditation. I find that if I keep them out, they scratch at the door in a very persistent manner, and that would be very distracting, as they are such a positive energy in my life. Can they pass in and out of my sacred space or circle? The simple answer is yes. The more complicated answer is why, and that's just because animals are much more in tune with magical energies than we are. I think because they don't have to think about things in the complex, messed up human way that we tend to, and they just kind of understand things more and they feel things more. We spend so much of our time being superstitious and skeptical and doubting things, whereas they just are, and they just be in it. My personal experience also has proven that animals can go in and out of your magic space without depleting much of the energy. And I personally think that's because they have that energy so much more strongly within them than we do. And for things like meditation, where maybe when I meditate, I don't necessarily cast a circle, I'm just in like a cool atmosphere. And I definitely love having my animals around when that happens because they like that energy too, and they like to come and chill out with you. So by all means, invite them. Let them, because they will feel left out if you don't. You said they scratch at the door, which is very distracting, and I would also say that if you do let them in the room while you're meditating and they are climbing all over you or something like that, and that distracts you from meditating, I would say you might have to do something about that, because obviously you don't want to lose your concentration. But if they're just kind of hanging out or sitting near you or something like that, definitely it's fine. Or if they can be climbing all over you and you don't lose your concentration, that's even better. Every time I leave my room and the cat follows at my heels, my mom says, "There's just something about your room that they always like," because my old cat, my late cat, Mystery Starlight, who some of you might know of, she always used to hang out in my room and sleep on my altar and drink out of the water bowl. And Sierra, the cat we have now, also is always hanging out in my room. And I think it's because they like the energy. They like to be in here because I keep it a pretty positive environment, and they like that. So yes, not only should you allow them to be part of your magicalness, but you also can without it causing any harm to a magic circle that you may have set up. So that's my video for the week, you guys, and I will see you guys next week here on The Pagan Perspective. Thank you very much for watching, and blessed be. Also, before I go, just a quick little plug. Dancing Rabbit needs to sell a whole bunch more copies of his book, The Way of the Horned God, and then they'll start publishing it electronically for those of you who have Kindles and Nooks and stuff like that. So, I have his book, I've read it, I've done a review on my personal channel. It's awesome. You should own it. So please go purchase a copy of Dancing Rabbit's book. Also, check out all of our personal channels, by the way, if you haven't yet, or if you haven't subscribed to them. Everyone is doing cool stuff on their channel right now. Pretty much. Charlie has a really cool green living series going on. Dancing Rabbit is going to be doing a whole month of the Way of the Horned God stuff. Annie is doing a moment on the wheel type videos, just quick things every day. If you like spiders, Cole has a spider and he posts a lot of videos of her. I can't even think of what everybody else's stuff is. Just go and check out all of our personal channels, because if you like us on here, you'll like them there. And yes, shameless plugs for my friends. Go.